Hi friends, welcome back for another gouache tutorial. Today we are going to learn how to paint these trees, lake, and a reflection. So let's get started. All materials can be found in the description below, and just keep in mind that this is a beginner tutorial, so make sure to pause when you need to catch up, or if you just need to pause and take your time, that is totally great too. So we're going to start off by marking the center of the paper. Doesn't have to be perfect, I just kind of guessed where the center is. This is where land will meet the water, so just make sure to mark it. We don't really need to draw anything in there. And another note is yours doesn't have to look exactly like mine, right? So let's go ahead and get started with a blue. I'm using the gouache set, and I'm going to use a kind of like a sky blue, and I'm only slightly dipping my brush in there because I'm really going to water it down, and that's going to be my sky. Something I found out later is once it dries, it's actually not as visible, so I probably should have made it way more blue, so no worries if yours looks a little bit stronger than mine. See here how I watered it down? The great thing about gouache is that they also work like watercolors. So go ahead and start running all the blue throughout the top part of your paper. And as I said before, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just run it through. If it's a little darker than mine, no worries. It's still going to come out just as beautiful. After you're done painting the sky, go ahead and clean your brush out thoroughly. And while the sky dries, we're going to start choosing a darker blue color for the water that's right underneath it. And we want to go ahead and switch back and forth. It's kind of what I do when I paint a lot of these water and landscapes. So let's go ahead and go with a very, very dark blue. And again, you're gonna see me kind of dip my brush in there. Don't make it a habit. I mean, this is a really bad habit, but I only do it because I clean my brushes thoroughly. So we dipped it in the dark blue, and now we're going to water that down as well. So here I added some water, a little bit of more water, and you see how watery it is. There's no real thick consistency to it. So we're going to go ahead and paint our water on. After you paint the water, make sure to pause it here. I went ahead and I sped up the video and give it about 5 minutes to dry before you go back in and we get started on the land. So go ahead and pause and then come back. All right, once it is dry, and even if it is, semi-dry, you can still see some wet spots in there, that's okay. Let's go back in and draw in the back mountains. They're kind of like a shadow, like silhouettes. We're going to use a very watered down black here. And it's going to be extremely watered down because when we place it on the paper, it almost looks gray. So go in, draw in the shape of your mountains, and you're not going to fill it in all the way to the bottom. We're going to leave some spacing there. So see how mine's still wet and my paint's kind of spreading? That's all right. Remember that mountains are organic and they're never perfect. You never see the same mountain twice again. So once you get those mountains in there, don't follow exactly what I'm about to do. I tried to add like a very watered down mountain there and it totally messed up my mountains. But no worries, just so you know, this painting was I kind of made it up as I went. It was inspired by a recent trip that I took up to the Rockies in Colorado. So I went in and I just redrew them. And remember, guys, if you make the same mistake I did, it's totally okay. These mountains are so organic, they're not perfect. And this is gouache, it can be a little messy. So it's still going to look good. Here, I'm going to place a timer for 5 minutes and we're going to step away and let these mountains dry. Once you're back, And our paper is now pretty dry. Go ahead and, look at your timer, it's done, and make sure it's dry. If it's not, give it a minute or two. I usually try and just kind of blow on it. I've heard people use blow dryers as well. I don't like blow dryers. It could blow the water or some of the paint that's on there and mess up your painting. So we're going to go back in and get some of that dark blue again for the water at the bottom. And I already have some water here and I just add on to it, and we want to make it a little bit darker. And again, guys, pause if you need to. You don't have to go at my speed. So go in, paint over it. And I don't know if you saw there, a little fleck of blue kind of went on one of the mountains. No worries. Don't try to wipe it off. Sometimes the imperfections is what makes this painting so beautiful. Now we're going to go in with a green. We're going to get a little bit with one of our smaller brushes. And we're getting ready to add in some land and some reflections. So go in with a little bit of green and let's get ready to head that way. So I went in and I'm adding some black to my green because I want kind of like a very dark forest green. So just a pinch of black. You'll see here that my green actually looked way too dark after I added that black. So I went in and added just a tiny bit more of green. If you don't have the same shade of green that I do, no worries. Use the green that you have. Make the modifications that you need to and press pause on this video until you get that shade that you're looking for. Remember, while this is a tutorial, also try to incorporate your own style. It is the best way to learn. So I finally got the shade of green that I wanted. And I'm going to go back in there with this small brush and I'm going to draw in my hill of trees. I'm going to go in and outline it first. And if you need to pause, because I'm probably going to go a little too fast, go ahead. But as you're drawing in your hill, while it looks like it meets the water, it's not exactly touching it. There's a very fine line between those two. So just make sure that you're not touching the water all the way. Fill it in after you draw it in and take your time if you need to. Once you're done with your little hill of trees, we're going to go back in with that same green and we're going to add lots of water to it. So look at the consistency here. And we're going to get ready to go ahead and paint in the reflection. My lake is still wet from when we last went in and added more blue, and that's perfect. So go ahead and paint in the reflection. It's okay if it's messy. Reflections are never perfect. If you feel like it's too green, the more water you add to it, the better. So feel confident. Reflections are never perfect. Don't feel bad if it doesn't look exactly like mine. All right, now it's time for us to go back in there and we're going to get started on our trees. You're going to want to get the same green that you had before or the same shade that you're using or something very similar. And we want them to be dark. So here I didn't add black just yet, but I ended up finding out that I needed just a pinch of black to get that dark forest green color going again. We want it to be very opaque, so make sure that it's not too watered down. And I've talked to people about this before. Brushes are brushes. You're, as an artist, you'll learn to adapt to different brushes that work for you. So if you have a flat brush like mine, that would work best, but it's really up to you what kind of brush you want to use to draw in your trees, as long as it's small and fine. Don't put your wrist on the lake. I don't know if you saw me guys point. Be careful because it's still wet. You don't want to mess it up. I used to make that mistake all the time. So don't put your wrist. My wrist is floating right above it. Now we're going to go in and see, here's where I found out that I needed just a little bit of black. We're going to go in and using that brush, you can run it down to create a line when we're drawing the tree trunks, or you can lightly tap. And I tried both here. So see how I'm tapping and creating those trees. If you look up pictures of misty tree and, by the lake, you'll notice that the top of trees are always a lot longer and pointier. They don't have as many branches and leaves at the very top. And that's kind of the effect that I want to create here. So pause if you need to. Right now, I'm just painting in those branches. And we want to paint them all the way to the top of the hill. Once you're done drawing in or painting in all your tree trunks, using that same brush, we're going to go in and quickly just tap it and create those messy leaves. We want it to be organic, so some of your trees, they can look kind of bare. They can look like they're missing branches, and I'm about to, do that with this tree, right? You'll see some trees are just missing complete branches and leaves in the center. So go in, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Just quickly go over and tap, tap, tap. Add in all the leaves to every single branch. And again, pause if you need to. Take your time on adding those details. Common mistake though, don't obsess about it being perfect. This is what I would call an abstract. So if you mess up, call it abstract. So now that we're done just kind of painting in our trees and all of our branches, we're going to get ready and we're going to want to add just a few more details here. So I'm just going in and adding random patches of green, and we're going to add some dark areas, and it looks kind of random, right? Maybe it doesn't make sense, but when you're done and you take a step back, some of these smaller details, they start bringing the whole painting together, and they add depth and just definition to the overall piece. So here I'm adding some black, and the way I see it when I was thinking about my trip is there were a lot of rocks the closer you got to the water. So I went in and I added some very dark areas at the bottom, and I imagine them as just being really dark dirt, wet dirt that meets the water, or mossy areas, or even holes or spaces. So that just adds some shadowing to the hill itself. I added some water to it just so that it wasn't complete patches of black and just kind of blended into it. So it's up to you, but I would definitely add some black at the very bottom just to, add those small details and make it look just a little bit more realistic. So go ahead and clean off your your brush thoroughly after you're done, and we're going to get ready to paint in the reflection of the trees now in the water. So it's very, very watery, as you can see here. It is a reflection. It's not perfect, right? It's rippled, it's messy. So go in and just draw just paint in random little watery sticks, because those are the trees. And if it's too green, remember, the more water you add to it, I guess it's a better effect, you could say. I felt that my reflection had dried out and it wasn't as noticeable, so I went in and added just a little bit more green. So make the modifications that you need to, and continue adding that watered down green to get the effect that you're looking for. Now, if you remember, we talked about that space between the land and the water. We're going to go back to it and give it the attention that it was seeking. So get that same small brush and clean it thoroughly. And we're going to get some of our white gouache here, and we're going to dip our brush into it very lightly. So when water crashes into land, it creates kind of like a white foam. And that is what I'm doing here. I'm just adding some white gouache, and if it mixes in with some of the green or the white, that's okay. We just want it to be kind of like a very dry consistency, to where you can see that foam, I guess you could say. And then you're pretty much it. Let it dry first before you take off the washi tape. And thank you so much, guys. I hope this tutorial was easy, and I would love the feedback from you guys on what you would like to see more of. Thanks again. Make sure to follow me on Instagram if you need some inspiration or just updates on any more upcoming tutorials that I plan on posting. I am trying to keep these tutorials short just because, as a beginner artist myself, I absolutely hate when they're like 30 minutes long and I just want them to get to the point. So hope you enjoyed. Follow me and let me know what you want to see more of. I really hope that this helped you understand gouache a little better. Give me a like and comment below. See you soon.